My name is Trevor Lowing, and I am the budget specialist here in the College of Fine Arts and Communication in the Dean's office. I have a bachelor's in history right here from Towson University, and I have an associate's in business administration from Hartford Community College. I enlisted in December of 2001 and started my service on active duty in March of 2002. My fascination with the First World War started when I was probably 10 or 11 with a series by George Lucas called The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. It really encapsulated what the Great War was all about, so that's how I got hooked. So I found Joseph almost haphazardly through a lunch with Greg and Pat Young, the director of Veteran Services here on campus. So at the lunch meeting, Pat had asked me what I had been up to, and I said I started writing this manuscript about the Great War because the centennial was coming up. And Greg volunteered that his grandfather had been in the German Imperial Army during that time, and that he had a collection of things and items and photographs, and if that was of any use to me, I could sure use it. And I had never seen artifacts, per se, from the German viewpoint. An actual Iron Cross second class, a Christmas in the Fields cigar case. These things were just pictures to me, and it's very just emotional to kind of get caught up in that and then realize that you really want to dig deeper and find the story. And and there was just an absolutely just fascinating story to be told. What is also interesting is that we have the original Kodak camera that Joseph used to take these photographs. The most valuable or fascinating item I'd have to say is the photo album because it chronicles in detail his travels through the Western Front as a soldier in the German Imperial Army. And it takes you from mid-1915 all the way up until the May Offensive of 1918. I was absolutely fascinated by the Hindenburg photograph. That was probably my favorite if I had to pick one, because Joseph is only feet away from the great general himself, Paul von Hindenburg, and snaps a photo of him in the field. So one of the other significant items that I had found were the Joseph's epaulets, and that is basically because the epaulets were very unique to that particular unit. And so Baden, where Joseph had come from, they had their own design for the epaulets, and they have colors that are unique to the state, the design, everything is very unique. So in the collector market, they're very, very collectible, and they're a fascinating piece to have. So what I found most unique about the hat was the fact that if you look at some of the photos, he's wearing it, and just your mind says, wow, it's survived all this time, and here it is much later, and it's still in fantastic shape, and it just brings back something of that time period. There's just a feeling that you get from holding that particular piece. Joseph was awarded the Iron Cross, second class, and so we want to say about a third of the German army were given these for either heroic actions or courage in the face of the enemy, and these kinds of things that we know in American culture. And so it meant something to me because I'd only heard and seen on a computer screen what an Iron Cross looked like through old black and white photos, but here I got to hold one in my hand. So one of the other significant items that I had the pleasure of looking and holding is the Carl Friedrich Medal, which is significant in the fact that it was given out strictly by the Duke of Baden. It was not given out by the Kaiser like the Iron Cross, first or second class was. So it was given out in smaller, the Carl Friedrich was given out in smaller numbers and only to men that had served in units that had come from Baden. To be awarded one in the field is one of the biggest honors a private enlisted soldier could have. Joseph was a Gefreiter in the 6th Company of the 2nd Battalion of the 110th Infantry Regiment of the 55th Brigade, which falls under the 28th Infantry Division, which falls under, I should say, the 14th Army Corps, which then answers to the General Staff, and then the General Staff answers to the Kaiser. So Joseph's rank on all of his certificates is Gefreiter, and that is one up, if you will, in the rank structure from a private, which would be a Soldat. Gefreiter is kind of like a senior private / what we know now as a lance corporal, like in the Marine Corps. In the Velkirk book, there are maps that chronicle the movements of the Western Front, and anytime we see the 28, the number 28, that is Joseph's division and the subsequent movements thereof. So the biggest takeaway is that Joseph and his division were at some of the biggest and most bloodiest offensives of the war, from the race to the sea to Belgium, to the Somme, Verdun, Carrere Forest, 1917, the tank battle of Cambrai, 1917, and then through the March and the May offensives, the big German push in 1918. And it's just very humbling to know that one man made it through all of this just horrificness and made it out alive. So the centennial for the Great War is upon us. It's 2014 to 2018, and if you want to count the Treaty of Versailles in the 2019. We can see you can literally say 100 years ago, this is what Joseph was doing. He was at this particular sector of the line. He was at this particular place. There's so much context in which we can say 100 years ago, this is what he was doing, and be able to show that as well. Not just tell, but show. And that, I think, is very, very significant and raises awareness as well. The exhibit will be located outside of the Veterans Center, which is located inside of the psychology building. My hope for this exhibit is that people walk away from this knowing the Great War a little bit better, because they got to see it through the eyes of an Imperial German soldier, whereas most people see it through the American, the British, the Allies. We get to see it through the eyes of a guy on the other side of the line.